Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. All individuals entering city-operated facilities, including City Hall, are required to wear a non-medical face mask. Those at the table are not required to wear masks while sitting, as long as they are distanced 6 feet from anyone else. Once you leave your seat at the table, you must put your mask back on. As directed by Manitoba Health, we're requesting people avoid close contact within 2 meters with anyone showing symptoms of a respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing. If you are experiencing flu-like symptoms, we are requesting that you recuse yourself from the room. My name is Carrie Linklater. I'm your chairperson today, and I am joined on the panel to my immediate left, Mr. Kent Seelan, and my far left, Mr. Mark Boreski. Our city assessor today is Arka Adakarnoff, and our admin secretary is Michelle Neepen. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. Statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparison of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if their matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. And as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Sure. Can you say his name?
Timber White.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So good afternoon, Mr. Brawadi, and good afternoon, Arka. And whenever you're ready to start, we're going to hear 325 Nairn Avenue.
File number 20449, roll number 14092973000. Address 325 Nairn Avenue. Owner Delcor Enterprises Limited. Roll year 2021 with reference date of April 1st, 2018. Assessed value of $539,000. I asked the board to confirm the value at $539,000. Subject property is a two-story building built in 1906 with effective which has also effective years of 1945 and 1970. Wall height 10 feet. Zone in C2 community. Land, land area 5,763 square feet. Plan area 2,816 square feet. Leasable area 3,636 square feet. Page 2 provides aerial and street view of subject property. This property is a former residential property that was converted to an office.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you just said.
This property is a former residential property that was converted to an office. It also has a detached garage in the back. On page 3, we have information on the sales of the property, and as we can see that the property most applicable sale is October 2009, where the property sold for $222,000, and there is also post-reference sale of February 3rd, 2020. Page 4 provides a breakdown of the income approach, where with the rates of standard for the premise 18380 accounts for a substandard basement of 1,116 square feet at the rate of $3.57, and also there is a first and main and second floor standard office. Premise 33013 with a leasable area of 2,520 square feet at the rate of $13.35 per square foot, with vacancy loss at 5.5%, expenses at 2% and shortfall rate of $7 per square foot, as well as cap rate of 6.2%. Estimated value is $539,000. Page 5 provides comparables used to defend the value, and we have the comparables number 4 and number 5 with, on the higher end, and comparables 1 and 2 on the comparables 1 and 3 on the lower end of the scale, with average of $11.43 per square foot. However, I would ask the board to consider comparable 4 and 5 for the purposes of this exercise. They are on the higher end. And also properties on 1341 Higgins is similar to subject property in a way it has been converted to a from a residential to an office. So page 6 again breaks down the income value, arriving at value of $539,000. Page 7 provides capitalization rates for that city is using, and we're using office suburban B properties with in a table there we can see it's a range of cap rates is 5.55% to 9.05%, and most of the properties 20th to 80th percentile would be from 6.2% to 7.3%. Following is an experts from the Municipal Assessment Act, and the rest of the pages are City of Winnipeg Assessment and Taxation Addenda, which provides information on calculations why City of Winnipeg no longer applies 5% management fee as a non-recoverable cost, and only leaves 2% as a non-recoverable cost. On page capitalization rate evidence can be seen on page 12, and non-recoverable expenses calculation can be seen on page number 13. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Brawadi, did you have questions of the assessor?
Just a couple of quick questions here. I'm just wondering if they had a chance to inspect the interior or the exterior of the subject property.
For the purposes of this hearing, I did not have a chance to inspect neither.
Okay. The effective years built, it says 1945 to 1970. As you mentioned, there's the main building and the garage. Am I correct to assume that the 1945 age is for the main building and the 1970 age is for the garage?
Give me 1 second, I'll...
Sure.
Oh, I don't have, I won't be able to answer the question specifically to that.
On page 3 of your information, they show the subject sale history with the date of February 3rd, 2020. I appreciate that sale price is after the effective date. I'm just wondering, is it the assessment department's policy to not include the sale information for post date sales?
Yes, it is.
It is? I wonder because I bought my house 2 years ago after the effective date, and I paid over the assessed value. It was included in the brief 2 years ago, so I guess that must be a change in policy.
No, it has always been, to my knowledge, it has always been the mission of post-reference sales.
Okay, just again, in my personal experience, I know that wasn't the case when I went through it last time, but if you say that's policy, that's policy. How would you describe the neighborhood of the subject property?
Well, subject property is located on Erin Avenue, right? I think it's northwest of the Louis Bridge. It's located on the heaviest, I guess, well, it's not super heavy. It would be considered a medium traffic road on Erin there. It's an older neighborhood, consisting of that particular stretch of Erin between, I believe it's Watt to, yes, from Watt to stretch into the street where the Erin Louis Bridge is. It's an older neighborhood, mixed use. There's a dealership, there is some residential as well as some retail and commercial space.
Okay. And just lastly, in regards to the capitalization rates, do you know what cap rates, what properties were relied on to come up with the 6.2%?
Well, this City of Winnipeg model relies on the table cap rates provided here. So as I stated, it's suburban B.
Okay.
And it ranges from 5.55 to 9.05.
Okay. So the 6.2% though relied on is below the low point of the Colliers, CBRE, and Cushman Wakefield low point for that category?
It is, yeah. And for a reason being is that I stated it before, lower priced properties, such as subject property, tend to sell for lower cap rates because a lot of times they're being sold, purchased for owner occupancy.
Would older buildings generally have lower cap rates or higher cap rates?
Older buildings, well, of course, older buildings generally would have higher cap rates.
Okay, those are all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Boreski.
Is it owner occupied?
At this point, to my knowledge, subject property is, as far as I know, is vacant. I did not do the inspection of the property. I believe the plan was for it to be owner occupied.
The plan is for it to be owner occupied?
To my knowledge, yes.
So there is no lease in place?
Not that I have.
And in addition to the basement, there are 2 stories, is that correct?
Yes.
And would those 2 stories normally rent for the same amount? Or would there be a different amount? between the 2
If
stories?
it was 2 different tenants, one occupying first floor and another occupying second floor, there most likely be a different amounts. But subject property is a single, is designed, is a single pit to be occupied by one occupant.
Is there an elevator in it?
I don't think so.
Looking at your comparables, you said that comparable number 3 at 460 Higgins was the most similar in that it was converted from residential to office. It is quite a bit larger in square feet. Would there be economy of scale operating on the net rent? And would it be higher than 933 for the what, 2,500 square feet? 36, no. So it's not an awful lot bigger. Sorry, I was thinking of 2,500. Is this rent then what you would expect for a similar size?
I think so. Comparable number 3. I don't think. I think I said comparable number 4 was converted from a residence. So it's 1341. Yeah.
Okay. 4 is the similar one. Now 4 is 4,377. It's also a higher. That's only 1 floor. So the 3 of your comparables, 5 and 6 and 1 are 2-story, like this building. Quite a variation in the rent, though. I mean, what do you conclude just looking at those 3? Where would that drive you to select a rent?
Well, when I was looking at it, as I said, comparable number 4 was converted from residential to a commercial use, and also I was looking at the I guess to the higher end of the scale, because subject property did go through a renovation process, and therefore should be considered in the above the average position for valuation.
All my questions.
Have you toured these comparables? Actually seen them?
Have I toured them?
Yeah, have you seen them? Have you inspected them?
Subject property, no.
None of them?
No. Neither did I inspect the comparables.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
So Arca, do you have in your notes, field notes, when this was last inspected? And or any description of the interior?
In 2013 note said that property was renovated and in good condition.
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch the
Property
year.
was renovated and in good condition.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the year.
2013.
2013. Okay, is there any more information on the renovations?
No, I don't have any more information as to the renovations.
Okay. So this is basically, though, a 114-year-old building, and you're giving it a cap rate of 6.2?
Well, it was built in 1906, so that makes 114 years old, but there's also an effective age due to the renovation. And
But I think you said the 1970 was due to the garage, correct?
I didn't have information as to which one was attributed to the garage, 1945 or 1970.
And your brief is model driven, page 4.
Okay, what was the question?
It's model driven.
It's
Your brief, page 4, with your.
that's property market income.
I'm sorry? No, page 4 of your brief.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, it's model driven.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. That's all my questions. Mr. Bawadi, if you'd like to give us your presentation, please.
Great, thank you. Just start up on the very cover page, you see a picture of the subject property. So as you see, it's a two-story building. You'll see that this picture was taken about 1 month ago. And you do see there's a for lease sign out front. The building is currently vacant. The owner has one desk in there just as extra space, but it is vacant and they're actively trying to lease it. You also know in the picture, if you kind of look in the front entrance there, the stairway has had to be demolished because since they've taken over the property, they've realized those front stairs were in poor condition and had to be demolished. If you skip or scroll through to about 3 pages to the summary of salient facts, again, outlines the information that the assessor has, I think, summarized quite well. No real issues in terms of the site area, building area, or any of those issues. And you see the final estimate of value that I conclude is $455,000. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to page 15 of my report. In terms of the historical data, I realize it's after the effective date, but the sale date and sale price is listed on page 15. Again, recognizing it is after the effective date. At this point, I will note that the owner of the property, either they or other companies that they hold, do own the 4 roll numbers to the west of this property, as well as approximately the 5 roll numbers to the east of the property, as well as properties on the south side of Nairn Avenue. So they were quite motivated to purchase this property to sort of, as I like to say, finish their monopoly and have, I think at this point now, 10 roll numbers consecutive to each other. Skip ahead to page 20, just in terms of the building description. Again, I'll highlight the construction date of 1906. Again, talking about the basement here, I've concluded an area of about 800 square feet of finished space, and that's the square footage I will end up applying rent to in terms of the finished basement space for the income approach. Second paragraph, I just want to highlight that on the date of inspection approximately a month ago, the front staircase had been removed due to its poor condition, and the roof was not inspected, but it was in poor condition and requires replacement. The last line, I conclude that this property is an average quality office space for its age. I'll jump ahead to page 26. Page 26 shows the summary of the market rents. There's 4 properties and 5 different rents, all located on Nairn Avenue. Their sizes range a little bit. Several of them are larger than what the subject is. These rents range from $5.50 to $12 a square foot. And you'll see then on the next page that I conclude a rental rate of $12 per square foot, which is fairly similar to the assessment, slightly below it, but fairly similar. You'll note that comparables 1A and 1B are located immediately next to the subject. So they're one store. They're on their main floor space only. Don't include second floor space, but in terms of location, they are located right next to the subject. Scroll ahead. Page 29 shows a vacancy rate of I conclude of 6.5%. Again, fairly similar to the city's number of 5.5, but slightly higher. Page 30 shows expenses in terms of a shortfall of $7 a square foot and 2%, which is similar to exactly the same as the city. The big difference is going to be when we get to page 31 in terms of capitalization rates. I have 6 sales from the effective period. These range from rather wide range of 5.29 to 7.91%. But while it's a wide range, it is kind of similar to the city stated rates for CBRE and Colliers and whatnot. You'll see some of the lower rates. 5 and 6 are both strip malls on Provencher, so they're newer buildings with a lot of land on superior location, kind of in the 6%. Comparable number 1 on Corden Avenue is a smaller building, but that was purchased by the tenant with the lease that was in place, and that's kind of the reason for the low cap rate, is they wanted to own their building instead of continue the lease that they had in place. And I would also just draw attention to comparable number 4, 883 Notre Dame. That is listed in the city's briefs as one of their just general properties that they choose. And I think it's quite comparable in terms of being a smaller building, 2-story commercial building, kind of on I'll say a secondary roadway. I have that in the high 6%, but that was built in 1970. So given those, and really focusing on the age and condition of the property, I've concluded on page 32 a capitalization rate of 7%. Page 33 shows my summary of the income approach. Again, the revenues and vacancies and all that are fairly close to the cities, but again, I think the main difference is the capitalization rate of 7%. Page 34 highlights a few comparable sales. You can skim through the few comparable sales and see on page 39 the 5 of them summarized. Again, a rather wide range of $61 up to almost $150 a square foot actually that should be $207 a square foot in terms of sale price. Majority of them are 2-story buildings similar to the subject. A few of them are similar vintage to the subject, including comparable number 4. Comparable number 4 is located on a better street of Marion, but it is similar in terms of being a small 2-story building that is similar vintage. And you'll see on page 40, I conclude a value of $180 a square foot, which concludes a value of $455,000. And page 41 shows my income approach of $445, direct comparison of $455. And given the fact it's owner occupied, I've relied on the direct comparison approach of $455,000. And that is my report.
Thank you. Other questions?
Just give me 1 second. Have you inspected the property?
I have.
And what interior condition can you tell us about it?
The interior it's renovated office space. I would say it's kind of cosmetically has been upgraded, but some of the rest of the guts of the building are older. But there's newer carpet, fresh paint on all the walls, while still keeping some of the heritage of the wood trims and whatnot.
It is a 1-tenant occupancy, right? It's designed for 1 tenant.
It's designed for 1 tenant.
And I know you did a cap rate study here. I'm just trying to find the right page here.
31 or so.
Let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, so in your argument for capitalization rate, do you agree that smaller value properties tend to have more buyers, and therefore, when purchased for owner occupancy, those buyers tend to pay a bit of premium, driving cap rate down?
Smaller buildings will generally be purchased for owner occupied. So there generally won't be a lease in place for the capitalization rate. So you won't see a lot of examples, but there can be, an upward force on value for smaller buildings.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boraski.
So you've concluded that you should rely on the direct sales comparison approach because it is owner occupied.
The two values are the two values are very close. And again, smaller buildings like this, as the assessor has stated, won't generally trade on the income approach. It'll be more so on the direct comparison approach because they will be owner occupied.
And was the renovation from residential to commercial done by this owner? It was not. It was previous to this owner
Correct.
acquiring the property. Was it occupied for commercial purposes with a lease after the renovation to being office?
It was, I believe it was owner occupied, I believe.
It was owner occupied.
I believe so, yes.
Does the absence of an elevator affect the value of the property?
I would say for a single tenant building design such as this, it wouldn't be as common to have an elevator in a building of this size for a single tenant, to be honest.
Parking with this building?
There is some parking. Again, as kind of mentioned, there's a little garage in the back that can fit about two vehicles, and then another couple of spots in the back. So there is some parking on site.
Have you in this building recently?
Yeah, in the report I stayed, I think August 11th.
August 11th?
And actually, my office building is next door, and my window looks out to it, so I see it every day.
Thank you.
Just a quick question on page. What are you at? 29. Your basement boiler picture. Is that the original boiler?
I am not sure, to be honest. I don't have the pictures in front of me. It's an older boiler. It's maybe original. I'm not sure, but it's definitely like I said, as I said. I think cosmetically it has been updated.
Yes.
But some of the guts and in terms of the roof and the
mechanical.
stairs and everything like that,
Right.
It's definitely an older building.
Because it looks like the original rads are there.
Again, to be honest, I don't have a picture of copy of my own pictures.
Yeah, there's
So I
a picture of the rad on the main floor entrance. The windows have been changed? All of them, some of them?
I can check my building description here quickly. Again, these renovations did occur prior to my client obtaining the property, so I don't have a full list of things that were done. But yeah, the mechanical room house is an older boiler. In terms of windows, I'm not sure.
Thank you. That's all my questions. Yes, go ahead.
Your comparable properties for cap rate analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which page?
31, I believe.
The location of these, Gordon, Dalhousie, Pembina, Notre Dame, Cravache. Are they comparable markets for owner-occupied small property like this?
Again, you'll see that most of these are multi-tenant. You see strip center, strip mall, strip center. I know Notre Dame was multi-tenant. So again, most of these properties are multi-tenant. They're on busier streets. It's kind of more demand for them for tenants. So I would say they all have a superior location just in terms of people wanting to be in that space compared to Nairn Avenue.
Okay, so your argument then is looking at these cap rates, this isn't what ought to be applied to the subject property. Subject property should have something different than this.
Again, these give a general range of what investors are expecting, and again, I would expect it to be on the higher end of this range. These strip centers that are built in the 60s and 70s have a lot of land and have good revenue coming into them. So the majority of them are in the 6% range. I would like 7%, kind of at the high end of those comparables, just recognizing that these are good income producing properties on major streets. Most of them with strip centers have a lot of parking, a lot of land value that would have a downward pressure on capitalization rates.
There was nothing you could find that was more similar to subject property.
Unfortunately, these are the best comparable for cap rates that I have.
But that's out of the information that you have at hand.
Correct.
This is not all sales
No, unfortunately, I don't have access to every cap rate, but again, I think in general, these ranges kind of fall in line with the general market numbers that the city states. The Colliers, the CBRE, and the Cushman are all, they show for suburban B spaces, 6.5 to 7 kind of percent, which is, the majority of these properties fall in that range. So I think it does kind of give a good indication of overall what the market is showing.
Yes, go ahead.
Is the hangar finished?
No, I'd say it's partially finished. You'll see on my income, I actually apply the rent to 800 square feet. That's what I've estimated to be the finished space. The city does apply the rent to the 1,100 square feet, which I think is the full basement. My numbers were a little different in terms of finished basement space.
Thank you both, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That's what I was going to ask. Mark and Kent, did you want to take a break?
Just 5 minutes.
Okay, sure. 5 minutes, thank you. Good afternoon, and I would like to call this meeting back to order. We are going to hear 1080 Wall Street. And I see there's a non-co-op on this. Arca, if you'd like to start us off. Oh, yeah, sorry.
I'm feeling much better today. You really want me to stand?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll put my mask on and get closer.
Can you say your full name? You affirm that the events you're about to give this hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Nice to-
Can you say your full name, please? Can you affirm that the events you're about to give this hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So for file number 2459, I would like to ask the panel for non-cooperation based on I request that the burden of proof be placed on the applicant for non-cooperation, section 53(3)B of the Municipal Assessment Act, and if the reduction in assessment is ordered, that it follows section 54(3.2) of the Municipal Assessment Act. The reason for me asking for non-cooperation is on page 10 and 11 of my brief. You can see that income and expense mailers were not returned to the Assessment and Taxation Department. So because of that, I'm asking for non-cooperation.
Thank you. Questions?
Yes, just referring to page 10 of your brief, I see a copy of the envelope. You have not included a copy of the contents of that envelope in your brief?
No, I didn't find any.
Okay, so there's the mailer itself is not included in your package, correct?
No, it's not.
And if you look at page 11 of your material, is there any indication on this tracking report that in fact the mailer was received by the taxpayer? You would agree that it appears as though a package went out, it was left for delivery, a notice card was left. I'm looking at the entries. If you follow June 8th, you'll note that the comment there is item in transit to post office, item available for pickup at post office. And then you see following that, item will be returned to sender if not collected within 10 days. And if you read all the way down, you will agree with me that what appears to have happened is that this package was ultimately returned to the city assessment department and was not, in fact, picked up or received by the owner, correct?
Well, that's what it is, yes.
So in light of that, would you reconsider your request for non-compliance?
I think I would still ask for it because the item was mailed and I do not know the reason. Item was mailed, on, as you can see on page number 10 to 1080 Wall Street.
You're suggesting that mailing the document is sufficient for the purposes of the Municipal Assessment Act? You're familiar with section, if you just look at page 9 of your brief. Section 16.2 requires the recipient to respond within 21 days of receipt of the request. Do you see that? Okay. And we don't have actual proof of receipt here, do we?
No, you're right. You do not have the proof of receipt.
Those are my questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gillespie.
On page 11. Final entry is signature image recorded for online viewing. What does that mean?
That somebody signed for the receipt of the document. So that's the last column.
So you're saying somebody signed for receipt of the document, yet the document was returned to the sender. Is that correct?
Yes.
Where would I see the signature on page 10? Is that where I would see a signature if there was a
So
signature?
page 10 is a copy of the envelope that was mailed out. So we do not have the actual copy of the signature.
Where would the signature normally be?
A signature would normally be signatures are normally done electronically on a device provided by the post office. When they receive.
So you have no way of recording a signature that the recipient would have done on this electronic device. Is that what you're saying?
Well, in order to get a signature, it has to be logged in into the Canada Post to retrieve it.
So you can't show us a signature, and yet you're saying that according to this
No.
last line.
Like I do not argue the fact that the item was returned back to the city of Winnipeg.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I do not argue the fact that the item was returned to the city of Winnipeg.
No. What I'm asking though is,
Okay.
you don't have any evidence of a signature from the recipient, though.
No, I do not.
You don't.
Is this signature, which is the last entry, 18/11/43/37, is that the signature that the city of Winnipeg signed?
Most likely it is a recipient of the city of Winnipeg that signed for it.
That's all my questions.
What is the usual procedure? Because this item was returned to the city, it looks like on June 25th of 2018. So when the envelope is returned to your office, how is it dealt with?
Unfortunately, I cannot answer that question. I don't know the procedure specifically. clerical procedure as to what next steps for it. I'm not able to answer that question.
So you don't know whether it's, you know, trashed, or is it put in their file? Does anybody follow up and say, gee, maybe we have the wrong address?
No, I wish I could answer a question.
Okay.
I don't know the information.
All right, thank you. If you'd like to proceed, Mr. Mercury.
Just briefly, so the Municipal Assessment Act is very clear in terms of what must be shown before a non-compliance order will be made, and that is proof of receipt. We've addressed these cases on numerous occasions, both before this board and the Board of Revision. So there's multiple problems with the city's request in this particular case. First and foremost, we don't even have evidence of the mailer in evidence in terms of what is actually been submitted, what they failed to respond to. And then, in fact, what they have provided seems to be conclusive proof that it was not, in fact, received. You just follow the chain of the dates here sent out. It obviously wasn't picked up, and in fact was routed back to the city of Winnipeg. So, in response to Mr. Boreski's question, where we typically see the electronic signature, what we commonly see in these briefs is a photocopy of the actual signature page. You can't obtain that. And you see the owner's signature, whoever it is, the owner's representative signature included in the materials. We obviously don't have that in this material. So we did provide, I don't know if this has been circulated, but there was one case. Again, I don't know that this is necessary, but it's a case that Mr. Neufeld and I dealt with at the municipal board recently, where somewhat similar circumstances, a little bit different, but the city had reportedly mailed a document to the address for service. They, like this case, did not have evidence of receipt, and the municipal board had clearly indicated that simple evidence of mailing the document was not sufficient to prove receipt under the Act. And so I've just drawn here, without going through the whole case, but if you look at page 15 of that particular case, this is 553-1846 Manitoba Limited.
Under rebuttal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rebuttal too.
I'm sorry, do you have it?
It was emailed.
Page 15.
Yes, page 15. If you all have that. But the second paragraph down, they simply indicate the board's opinion mailing the April INE and the June INE to the address for service does not prove they were received by the owner. The board is not satisfied the mailing of an assessment notice or a tax bill is proof of receipt by the owner of the June INE. So the argument that the assessor had advanced there was, well, we were also sending the tax notices there and so forth. So you can rely on the fact they must have received it, and that clearly wasn't good enough for obvious reasons. So for those reasons, we would suggest that the request for non-compliance should be denied in this case.
I would like to withdraw my request for non-compliance.
I'm sorry, Arthur, you're.
I would like to withdraw my request for non-compliance.
You're going to withdraw.
Yes.
So in that case, Arthur, would you just like to proceed with the
Definitely.
document?
Okay, file number 20459, roll number 13011457333. Sorry, I'll start the roll number. Roll number 13011457300. Address 1080 Wall Street. Owner Casa Domingo Portuguese Center Inc. So for the roll year 2021, we have two classifications. Classification number 60, other property, is valued at $464,000, and classification number 40, institutional property, is valued at $1,334,000. Total assessment $1,798,000. Subject property is built in 1956 with a 1959 effective year built. Average wall height 12 feet. Zoning is M1 manufacturing. Land area 33,414 square feet. Plan area 10,800 square feet. Gross floor area 14,496 square feet. Leasable area 13,610 square feet. So again, page 2 provides information about the income and expense mailer. We've been over that already. Page 3 provides income subject property market income for class code 16, which has 3 premises ranging in value per square foot is 1236, 1240, and 1327, with vacancy at 5.5%, expenses at 2%, and shortfall at 7%, and cap rate of 6.8%. Estimated value $464,000. And income stream number 2 is at for 10,800 square feet at a price of $10.82 per square foot. Vacancy at 5.5%, expenses at 2%, and shortfall at $7 per square foot. Cap rate of 7.8%. Estimated value of $1,334,000. On page 5, we see rent comparables in the area, and we have those are all similar age buildings with average age of 1976 and median of 1979. And we can see that price per square foot is $11.27 and $11.25 for median. That was the small premises, by the way, and then we have larger premises. Again, for similar age buildings, and we have average of $14.55 and $14.06 per square foot. Page 7 provides a summary of income value summary, and that providing both income streams. Page 8 provides cap rates, capitalization rate City of Winnipeg used, and again it's a suburban office B with the City of Winnipeg cap rates ranging from 5.55% to 9.05%. Page 9 is municipal assessment experts. 10 and 11 are the income and expense correspondence that we've been over already. Page 12 till the end of the report is City of Winnipeg fresh look information, providing capitalization rate evidence on page number 15. Again, there we see a range of 5.1% to 6.54%. First table there that's called office. And page 16 provides non-recoverable expense sampling, where you can see in the table that total median non-recoverable expense is 1.06%. City of Winnipeg is using 2% non-recoverable expense. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Natal?
Yes. This property is assessed as an office building, is that correct?
It has
I'm looking at the front, CMOFF office, right?
Yes, it is. Mhm.
Yeah, was this originally, has this always been an office? In the assessment department?
Um,
It's correct, it was built as a warehouse?
just give me a second. Mr. Neufeld, I wouldn't have information as to what it was previously. I don't have that information with me right now. So currently, it is being assessed as office.
And what is the current use?
Currently, subject property is being used for a cultural center, as well as part of it is being used for offices.
Portion, the 2,800 square feet is used for office, and the predominant 10,800 square feet is used as a cultural center. And have you ever been in this building?
No, I have not.
Yeah. Have you ever seen pictures from the inside of this building?
No, I have not.
Is it fair to say that it is not an office? A cultural center is not an office?
Well, it is being classified as an office building. Without being inside the building at this point, I cannot tell you for sure, but that's what we have on record.
And if the building were not classified as office, but something closer to what it was built as a warehouse, it would have different parameters, would it not?
A warehouse, which is actually a warehouse, would have different parameters than an office. And buildings have been, like if it has been a warehouse at some point, it has been converted to an office, and that's why it is currently being classified as an office.
You're assuming it's been converted to an office. You haven't seen the inside of it, have you?
Personally, I have not. No.
Okay. And what's the highest and best use?
As I did not do the highest and best use study, however, I present the value as an office because that's what it's being classified as right now.
Does this part of the city of Winnipeg have a great deal of office users?
Excuse me?
Does this part of the city, Wall Street, Aaron Street, West End, have a fair degree of office users?
Wall Street does have offices, but it's a mixed use. There are warehouses, there are industrial buildings, storage facilities. However, such property currently is classified as an office.
On your pages 5 and 6 are your rent comparables. Are any of them from the West End?
Well, actually, page 5 is focusing more on St. James industrial area, West Alexander area, Minto area. So they are within the proximity.
They're all St. James industrial area. 1555 St. James and 1313 border. These are not in the West End.
No, but we have also 1075 Portage and 1313 Border Street.
1075 Portage is actually the old driver's license site, correct? Currently, I'll call the AFM, which has been vacated for a flood. If you don't know, that's fine. I just wanted to place these on the map so people are aware of where your rents were selected.
Well, currently, what I have on record is 1475 Portage. It is a just biggest surrender claims trust.
I think I achieved what I was hoping. I asked the question and I told you where it was. That's all. We really need to confirm that it's the old driver's license building that's now the AFM building.
No, that was a question. I'm just answering.
Yeah.
Answering the question as to what.
Page 6. None of these are remotely close to the subject, are they?
No, page 6 was a bit more tougher to in terms of locating larger parcels, and I broke them down into, because subject property has small offices as well as a larger parcel. Sorry, not the parcel, larger office, larger premise. So I broke it down into two separate categories. So page 5 would have
but
small,
none of them are
smaller.
close. You've got Fort Garry, Linden Woods, St. James, Polo Park, Norwood. These are not close, similar locations.
No, they are. Yeah, they go into wider ranges.
Nothing from Wall Street or Aaron Street.
No, there is none.
Okay. In regard to the capitalization rate, why are there two different rates on the same building?
Different premises pull different rates individually, and City of Winnipeg. So those cap rates are estimated value based on premise. Based on premises size, and as you can see on page number 7, it blends it all together in the summary.
Well, two separate revenue streams. Are you suggesting the property could be sold in two sections?
Two separate revenue streams are designed to accommodate two separate class codes.
Well, why wouldn't you take the entire parcel and use that for capitalization rate? Wouldn't that be a truer reflection of an investor's interest in the property?
Well, that's why we look at page number 7, where it says cap rate of 7.54% as a blended rate.
And these capitalization rates, this blended rate, and was this all done by the model?
All of it is model driven, yes.
And for support for this particular property, are you relying on the capitalization rates on page 15, or were those, as it says here, illustrations?
Those are summary. Those are as you have indicated in the illustration, or those are some of the cap rates, actual cap rates that were calculated. That's page 15 information. What I'm relying on is a page number 7.
You're relying on page 7. So those are illustrations, and you are aware that. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Are you in this case? Should we be looking at the numbers for office cap rates?
Yes, we are.
And you're aware that 3 of those, 294 Portage, 177 Lombard, Bard, and 341 Roblin, contain instructions on their mailers that they should not be relied on for cap rate sales due to the individual particular characteristics of those sales?
I am not aware of any instructions.
And for the sale of all the properties, you have the sale date. What was the date? Were these, sorry, was the income derived from a mailer from a previous date?
Okay, so we're looking at page 15, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so page 15 is a standard assessment evidence put together by the department to show capitalization rates on the properties that have sold. Personally, I have not looked into every single one of them to determine what was used to get the value.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boraski.
What are the two income streams at the property?
Income stream, one is income stream number one is for class code 60.
Which is what's going on there?
Which is classification of other property, and class code 60.
No, I mean, what's actually being done in that area that has class code 60
Okay.
and is income stream one?
So that area where class code 60 is not being used by the cultural center, and it is being rented out in the market.
To what? What's being rented out for?
Give me 1 second, Mr. Boraski. We have 3 businesses registered there for 3 premises: handyman connection, handyman connection, and Nancy M. Conclaves. So 2 premises are being currently being listed out, and one is one premise is not being listed out, so appears to be vacant.
Okay, so you're saying that in income stream one, there are 2 leases
Well, there's 3
and a vacant area that they are desiring to lease out. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so then income stream 2, is that the area that the Portuguese Cultural Center actually occupies?
Correct.
What is the term of these leases?
I don't have the information on the specific terms of the leases.
You don't know if they're long term, short term.
No, I don't have that information.
Your rent comparables, you divide them between small premises and large premises. Why do you separate them that way?
Well, if you look at page 3 of my report, that's income stream number 1, and as you can see, those are commercially rented premises that are smaller in size. So they range from 500 square feet to slightly over 1,000 square feet. So 1,100, 1,200 square feet. That's why I selected areas that would accommodate smaller premises. So that's page number 5, rent comparables, small premises. Then on page 4 of my report, that's actual cultural center, that's 10,800 square feet. For that purposes, I did a search of premises around 10,000 square feet to derive rent per square foot there.
I get it. So it's essentially, there's an owner occupied area and then there's the leased out area
Correct.
or available. Your small premises comparables, the bulk of them are at 55 St. James and 1313 Border Street. What kind of buildings are those?
They're industrial buildings, to my knowledge.
Like multi-tenant, Office in front, warehouse behind, what kind of stuff is this?
Yeah,
This
that's
is where pictures help. This is where pictures help us.
exactly. Sorry for. Yeah, but you're right. So those are industrial type of buildings where you have a office in the front, and actually the one on they're more office buildings. The 1313 Border Street is more of an office type of building. It would appear to have office spaces on both sides of the building. So there is no industrial area in the back. So
Excuse me, Mr. Neufeld. Sorry, it's very distracting if you're talking when people are giving evidence. Thank you. As I said earlier, the acoustics in this room are already poor. Thank you.
So these two properties are multi-tenant. And they were built in the 70s. How old is the subject property?
the subject property was built in 1956.
Okay, so given the different characteristic of these buildings and the different age, what should that tell me about the rents?
Give me 1 second. So yeah, so 1555 St. James and the 1313 Border Street are properties that are built and designed in a form to accommodate the office spaces, and therefore would be slightly better accustomed to would be slightly better accommodating than the subject property. Yeah. Then,
All right. Thank you.
I have no questions. Chair.
Arco, can you tell me the last time, because you yourself have not gone through this building, correct? You did not inspect it personally? So do you know when the last time it was inspected?
I do not have any record of somebody inspecting the property.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Mr. Neufeld, if you'd like to proceed.
Yes, thank you. I have two pieces of rebuttal information in regard to the assessment department's classification of this as as office. I emailed them both in, and I have additional copies here. Actually, I don't have copies of the pictures. You have the pictures? And then this document. So the pictures in the rebuttal information, which I didn't have a printed copy of, but I'll have it here shortly, but I believe you have them in your system, show a building that was built as a warehouse in 1956. There are some finished office areas you can see in there, and you can also see that the large general area is an open area. I guess you would call it a pole framed construction, unfinished. The cultural center as itself consists of basically some curtains down the side and a kitchen area. I've inspected it. I took those pictures. I've been there twice. Once was I'm not allowed to make inspections, and the second time I was there because the bar was open. But the first time was completely safe for me. Yes, I'm looking at the assessor's pictures here, and those are the ones that you just got in the email. Yeah. So on page, just gives you an idea of the finish. There is a central hallway, but the main area is the next picture down. Sorry, no, it isn't. It's the next. There we go. That's the main area. That's the cultural center, the building itself. And I don't know what page that is on. Here, 5. Yes, that is what passes for a cultural center. So it is just a warehouse that they're using as a cultural center. And the office build out was the former office build out of the former warehouse user, which they are, we're not disputing that, but it's accessory office. The other document I sent out, I'm not comparing assessments. It's simply a workup of the neighbor's property, which is 968 Wall. Slightly newer than this, and all I'm doing with this is to show you similar square footage that the assessment department parameters would be different if it were classified correctly. And you can see on there that the assessment department parameters in that particular case are half what they are on this property. And that's what should have been used, is they should have called it warehouse, because there's no such thing as an office like that on Wall Street. It was built as a warehousing street, Wall and Aaron, in 1956. It is what it is. Moving to the property itself, my brief that was sent in, we're using the split of the areas. The assessor did present an accurate concept of the square footage. We're 2,810 square feet, been subdivided into or demised into 3 smaller offices, 2 being used, 1 vacant, shared bathrooms, and they are on that upper level, whereas the main level is predominantly, you can see the picture in page 2, the offices are in that upper portion, and the cultural center open area is on the 1st floor. On page 3 is a clip from their mailer from 2017. That is not in dispute, and this is what they've reported, that they have gross rents in place for the 2 areas. One is 1,050 square feet. The other is $1,050 per month. The other is $1,000 per month, and gross rents. And they are month-to-month leases. There are no terms indicated. We have worked those out to come to approximately 429 square foot net after the 875 gross, 429 net after taxes and utilities. And we took those numbers from the forms that were submitted in 2017. Now, looking at this site, the concept of going after smaller offices and then comparing it that way, that's one way of looking at it. So we did provide you with some rents for mixed uses, page 4. These are generally from West End and Central Business Area, showing in offices that are in either lofts or industrial buildings, and you can see the ranges of them are from $311 to $8, and that would vary on the type of finish and the neighborhood that they are Page 5 has a number of, again, smaller sites. And these are all Superior, and they're all around the city and showing what miscellaneous office rentals are. Page 6 shows industrial rental rates in sizes ranging from 1,600 to 9,600. And we do have some from the neighborhood. One is 1378 Clifton, which is nearby, which is 472 a square foot, although that is a smaller site. And the balance of them are from areas that are not the premium areas in town. There were a couple from 1555 St. James that are included, and 1555 St. James is a multi-use building where one building is all office, and one building is warehouse with office. So we use the ones from the office warehouse, which is basically what this would have been. Those are for a Superior building at $550 a square foot. And in terms of the border, 1313 border is an interesting building. It was actually built as a corporate head office for a bankrupt airline. I want to say Transair. I know this because when I was a kid, I was the janitor in that building, the first tenants, and it's not a suitable comparison whatsoever. We've actually looked at 1347 border, which is just down the street, which is a multi-tenanted warehouse building for $550 and $475 a square foot. Those are very reliable rents, more in tune to what was in the building. We did end up putting a rent of $6 on it, and the upper end of the range of the ones we brought to you on the owner's portion, and 429 is the actual portion. The net income potentially 76,849 for the building characterized as it should be. We've looked at vacancy rates, which were driven by the market, and looked at a mix of retail and office supplied for you. However, it should come from the industrial side. That's an error on our part. However, we're not disagreeing with the assessor's number. In terms of structural reserve, we're looking at an actual way of dealing with the building in the market, which would be not a 2% allowance, but 50 cents a foot. And what this relates to is generally capital costs for roof replacement down the road. It's got a lot of roof. Shortfall, we've calculated it on the actual shortfall of the site, which is lower than what the assessment department has, but reflecting that it is an industrial building. So the numbers have to correspond to the building usage. So our NOI is, for the total, is 58,634, which is less than half what the assessor has, but that's because they did not classify this building properly. That's the main message here. As far as cap rates are concerned, I think we're not exactly in love with this building. We've put it at rather high. It's just an old building from that's over 60 years old on a street, and that's no longer a primary industrial area of the city of Winnipeg, and it falls below utility for any usage, whether it be warehouse because of its low ceiling height, office because of its location, retail because of its location. And of course, with retail or office, if you were to rely on anything in there, you would have to put in capital costs for conversion to actually make it an office. It is not an office. And the rates for industrial, we have a fair amount of them, and I'm looking at the page to see where we put them. Page 38 and 39, what it most represents on page 39 is the one at 51 Aikens, another older building in a part of the city that's not popular anymore, that capped at 11%. The difference on that one is that one has Aikens, I'm suggesting, has less land, which was an impact on its achieved cap rate.
Okay, sorry, you're on page 39?
39.
Yeah,
I'm not,
I don't have that.
you've quoted several numbers that I have not seen.
Yeah.
That's in this document?
There's 1080 wall on top?
Yeah.
documents and they have different values. I have the two coilers numbers and they all have different numbers. One is $8 per square foot, another one is $6 per square foot on the front page. So I was kind of just trying to go back and forth, but I'm not.
Can I just take a look at what you've got there? Okay, that's the one I'm talking about. And what was this?
It's one that was way up to
Here, what's- Oh, it wasn't page 39, it's differently numbered.
Even the numbers on page one were different than what you were just reading
Yeah.
off.
Do we have the original document? We didn't get the second one.
Sorry, let me just look at this one. This is the one I just handed out, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, let me just. Okay, well, this happens. Can I just look at yours and I'll just redirect my, the one that was emailed to you? 'Cause it's not going to make a difference except for the reference is.
But what's the amount that you're seeking?
Oh, I see.
Is that
Is there a
different?
difference between the two versions? 800,000?
Do you have two?
Okay. Yeah, no, the one, I know, okay. We had a problem. I see what happened here.
But this one you handed out today, Rocky, is completely different.
Yeah, no, what the big difference is, it's a $6 a foot versus $8 a foot. And you don't have my information. The cap rates I was discussing are on page 35, the one that you've got in your possession. So that, nothing changes there. It's just the only difference being is that the rate put on that we handed in was at $8, and I've revised that to $6, and that's totally my fault. And I did not submit that as evidence in enough time. Okay, so the evidence you're looking at says that we're looking for a rent of $8 on the cultural center, $4.29 for the tenanted area. And the value comes out to $800,000, and the split is done on a square footage basis, which is the same percentage that the assessor has used.
Okay, I'm just going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
So, Arca,
Yes.
are you on this one, second version?
Oh, this was just handed out for me.
Okay.
This was mailed
So
out
you're
2
looking
weeks
at,
ago.
all right.
So
So we are going to go with the version that we have, correct?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes.
Yes. But I verbally can tell you that I did not prepare the first version. I disagree, and I believe the rent should be $6, not $8 for what it's worth. And I didn't give you my statement to that effect. And the person who did this has never been in the cultural center in the building. I have. So my revised value is different, and it's $600,000. I don't know how I deal with this. It's just a rule of evidence here is at stake, not an opinion of value. So I have an opinion of value that was provided by our office at $800,000. Main difference being $8 rent. I have my own opinion of value at $6 a square foot, which would come down that value at $600,000. Those are the numbers that are in front of you verbally. It does happen that I disagree occasionally with what our own office has prepared based on my actual inspection. I'm leaving it with you.
Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
And what is this?
So was this past our deadline? Thank you. Just going to call this hearing back to order, and Mr. Neufeld, we are going to go with the brief that we have in front of us with your $800,000 value. If you want to be brief and give your new value.
Yes, I figured out what happened there, but you're right. You have a value. The only difference between the two documents was the rent on the cultural center, which in your document is at $8. My opinion of value is $6. I did not prepare that. So not throwing it out to posture or anything, just that the place next door is $6. This is warehouse. My total value, when you do the math and the same numbers put in, comes to $601,000. That would be my verbal request for a value, and I apologize for this, but this is got messed up. That's my presentation. All the other data, by the way, that I quoted from, I may have given you the wrong page numbers, but it's all in the document.
It's all in the same, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Arca, did you have questions of Mr. Neufeld?
So you said that you inspected the property, correct?
Yes.
When did you inspect the property?
I've been in there twice. The last time was in 2018.
And the pictures you provided are from 2018?
They could have been or 2017.
In your argument, you're arguing that premise is a warehouse and should be valued as such, correct?
That's correct.
Warehouses that you are comparing, warehouses typically would have minimal finish, no heating, no insulation. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, they would have heating, of course. They would have the creature comforts would be lower in certain sections in the warehouse for creature comforts. So personal comforts would be lower in the warehousing section.
Excuse me?
The comfort, the HVAC for personal comfort would not be would generally not have air conditioning in the warehouse portion, but heat everywhere.
Warehouses typically would have bare cement floor or no dirt floor. Would you agree with that?
Well, they would have, generally they'd have a flooring, generally concrete floors in warehousing sections.
As far as interior finish of the warehouse, there would be also minimal interior finish. Would you agree with that?
That's correct.
So when I look at the pictures, let's look through it. So we obviously see that the subject property does have finishes such as doors, plaster or drywall.
Those are the office section you're looking at,
sections,
which were built as the office for the warehouse.
Okay. And then on page 5 of your picture, rebuttal evidence, the area that is you consider warehouse, is that the area that you consider a warehouse?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and is that a tile floor that's in there?
Those are ceramic flooring.
So it is a ceramic tile floor, correct?
That's correct.
And is it, well, the picture only shows section, but is it safe to assume that this type of flooring is throughout the 10,000 square feet?
I'm just trying to recall. I don't think it's the entire area. The kitchen area, of course, the food preparation area has ceramic flooring, and I think what the picture you're looking at is the dance floor.
Yeah, but it's only part of the dance floor.
Yes.
So it extends more. What obviously would you agree with me that the interior finish of the subject property is way superior to any warehouse you're comparing it with?
No, it's a garbage interior. Ceramic flooring doesn't change value. It was put on the floor. The walls have curtains. Purple curtain is the wall covering. It's a warehouse. There's nothing special about it. You know, they've spent a couple $100 on the interior finishes. That doesn't overnight turn it into an office. It's not coded for an office. You could put an office in there and get an occupancy permit for an office. The requirements are much higher than just a little bit of ceramic flooring. There's HVAC requirements, barrier-free access, finish. It's nowhere close to that.
And again, going back to page 5, as you call it, the dance floor versatile, there's also HVAC present in the subject property.
There is heating in there, and there's, I think they've added a package unit for portions of it.
But you still would you agree with me that the interior finish of the subject property is superior to a warehouse?
No, I've seen warehouses in the same finishes. There's no money spent on this. What you're failing to bring up with your characterization is you're looking at a few $100s worth of changes to a site. That's not going to make it a warehouse. It's like if you finish your garage, it doesn't become interior space. It's still a garage. It doesn't add any value to your property.
Subject property, so we're clear that subject property has office sections for about 2,800 square feet, correct?
That's the upper level, yes.
Yes. And then main floor, which consists of 10,800 square feet, consists of dance floor.
Well, it's generally an open area, and then there's a hallway with bathrooms on it, which was part of the warehouse building when it had bathrooms.
Are there any offices in the main floor?
I was not in any, so I don't recall. I can't answer.
So those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's the wall height?
I'm going to say clear inside height is about 11 feet.
Not much of a warehouse, Is it more suited to light manufacturing than to warehousing? Also considering that I don't see anything much in the way of doors. There's one garage door. Would trucks have difficulty getting in and out?
I think the dock doors were closed over and plastered on top. It had doors at one time in its life. It could have been a light manufacturing or a warehousing building. I mean, they generally will consider them in the same classification, so I wouldn't be concerned about one use or the other being what it was.
But you're saying this was built originally for what purpose?
I saw in the original title that Safeway's name was on this, so I was assuming it was a Safeway production facility or outside storage.
And that's back in the 50s.
Yes.
It became the Portuguese Cultural Center when?
I don't know.
Long time ago.
I think 15 years ago, roughly.
Tenants are in the upper story and only the upper story?
Yeah, the tenants are, it's clear when you look at the names, they are Portuguese names. They're people who are members of the association who conveniently found an office and they're paying rent.
Do they have outside access to the upper?
No, they don't.
They have to walk through?
No,
portion
yeah.
of the community club?
That's correct.
Is that suitable, normal, leasable space?
No, and that's why it would be accessory space. And the reason we're including it in the rental income is because they're actually getting rent from this facility. So obviously the facilities, the bathrooms are shared, and it's a small space for the two users to run their small businesses from.
That's all.
Mr. Seelan, questions?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I have no questions. And if that concludes this matter, gentlemen, we are going to move on to 414 Graham Avenue.
was going to say one word before we start, that both the assessor and myself managed to inspect this facility after our briefs were exchanged. So we may have offer different opinions of value as a result. And I did communicate that with ARCA earlier, that we had changed our thoughts on it.
Okay, and I'm just going to ask everybody, we would like to get, I would like to get through the docket today. We still have 4 items left and it's 3 o'clock. So if everybody could have brevity in the forefront.
I think that when you see this property, your optimism will fade.
There is always hope. Mr. Neufeld. Arca, if you'd like to start us through this, please.
So, as Mr. Neufeld mentioned, we did both inspect the property. I did get an email, him informing me that he was gonna update some information. However, that leaves me no time to review it. I did not make any changes to my document. So I'm still going with what was prepared originally. And I'll leave up to the board to make a decision on whether to accept or reject the newly provided information by Mr. Neufeld. So with that, I'll start. File number 20373, roll number 12093677000, address 1414 Graham Avenue, owner 1414, address 414 Graham Avenue, owner 414 Graham Inc. Roll year 2020, reference date April 1st, 2018. Assessment, assessed value $4,335,000. So it's a 3-story building with which was originally built in 1959 and has a 2000 effective age. Average wall height 15 feet. Masonry wall bearings. Land area 7,050 square feet. Plan area 7,000 square feet. So it's a basement area 7,000 square feet. Total gross floor area 28,000 square feet and leasable area is 28,000 square feet. Page 2 to 3 has the pictures of the subject property. Page 3 provides picture of before the renovations. So it's a 2017 picture on page 3. Page 2 provides street view of the I think it's 2018 renovated front of the subject property. With that, just give me a second. The subject property has there's a subject sale history that dates to 2016, where it was purchased for $2,700,000 in December 7 of 2016. Since I'll just I guess go over the market income right now. So what we have is a leasable basement of 7,000 square feet at $11.16 per square foot. First and second floor of 7,000 square feet at $15.15 per square foot, and third floor is not finished actually. And currently we have it classified as storage area at $9.85 per square foot. So with vacancy at 9% and expenses at 2% and cap rate at 6.75%, and I forgot the shortfall at $11 per square foot, estimated value $4,335,000. Rent comparables are on page number 6. And again, page 7 provides income value. So what we have, that leads us to the permit section on page number 8. And give me a second, I need to organize my papers for further presentation. Okay, so what has been provided to you is that in the document there are 2 permits, and I'll speak verbally for more permits. So we'll start with the permit that was taken out, issued in November of 2017. Permit number 1 OP 1685270 0017, and it's a permit to 24/7 in-touch alterations to include replacing the existing curtain wall on the north side of the existing office multi-use building. All work must be inspected before being covered, and you saw that on the pictures that we have provided, the Google Street View pictures. Another 2017 permit for
Sorry, are these in the?
I'm speaking verbally to you.
Oh, okay. I was just looking for it.
Yeah.
I didn't see them.
So another 2017 permit that was taken out is permit folder 17 1326390000000 OP, and this is a permit for interior alterations to include demolition of interior partitions, walls, millwork, electrical, mechanical, demolition of basement foundation walls, second floor access to ramp, basement slab, new main and second floor openings for future staircases. All work must be inspected before being covered at final completion. So that's another permit that was taken out in 2017, which leads us to another permit to the permits that were provided in the document. Permit OP 12, so page 8 now. Permit OP 120149. It's a permit to alterations to include recladding of exterior and interior renovation. So you see all the permits from there. Based on that, an assessor spoke. Just find the paper here. An assessor spoke to Ambrosio Ringer, who is one of the managers at 24/7 in touch. And by the way, I'll speak to that 24/7 in touch and 414 Gram are related companies. So it is a property 24/7 in touch that will be occupying the property is in a sense owner occupied. So with that, an assessor spoke, and the company got an interim occupancy permit effective May 13, 2020. And I have the copy of the occupancy permit right here. It's an interim occupancy permit effective May 13, 2020. So at that time, on page 10, A supplementary assessment was issued effective May 13, 2020 for the subject property. That's page 10 of my report.
I don't have that.
It seems like the page numbers
Are askew. I've got income value summary on your page 10.
Pages.
Probably yes, coronavirus. All right, let me just. On page 10, you're saying you're seeing income value summary for 414 grand.
What you have? Mark?
Come again?
What do you have on your page 10?
Page 10 is income value summary.
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Oh, my fault. I was. Yeah, you're correct. There were more pictures, and the picture, the copy I was looking at. So yeah, so we have page 2, 3, 4, and 5 provide, as well as 6 provide pictures of the subject property, and those pictures were mailed to the department by the property owner back. I believe it was when the property when the assessor spoke to the property owner. So page 7, we have subject sale history, 2,700,000. Page 8 is market income. Page 9 are rent comparables. Then we are moving to permits on page 11. My apologies for that. So we are moving forward on page 11 for permits, and I spoke to the permits that weren't included. So page 11 provides permits that for interior alteration, major work. So it's a $4 million permit for interior renovations, as followed by another $1 million permit on page 12 for construction. Now, page 13 provides supplementary notice that was mailed out effective May 13, 2020, based on the interim occupancy permit that was provided to the property owner or to the occupant effective May 13, 2020. Okay, so page 14 provides another assessment assessor advice for 2021 value. And we have standard presentation. I'm not going to go over it. Going on further, it's cap rates and unrecoverable expenses. We've covered it. So that is all I have said for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Newfeld, or?
Do you have a copy of the interim occupancy permit that you referenced earlier?
Yes, I do.
Could we have a look at that?
I guess, yeah. Yes. I will. I only have one printed copy. I was hoping I'll just speak to it. But what I can do is I can email it to you.
So we hadn't previously seen the interim occupancy permit, but just having had a chance to look at it, just I'll have some questions, and I expect Mr. Neufeld will have some questions as well. And so just to clarify, the supplementary assessment that you referenced was, which is effective May 13, 2020 to December 31, 2020, correct?
Yes.
All right. And so, and you also indicated that this notice or shows it was issued under section 341 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, or is it section 14 and section 14.2 of the Municipal Assessment Act?
Sorry. How about actually trying to email? So what, could you repeat your question?
This is under, sorry, section 14.2 of the Municipal Assessment Act, so errors or omissions on the assessment for the 2021 roll. And with respect to 2020, this is section 341 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, correct?
Yes.
All right. And you indicated that this was based on the interim occupancy permit that was issued to the City of Winnipeg, correct? Or issued by the City of Winnipeg.
Oh, yes.
Can you explain the difference between an interim occupancy permit and a final occupancy permit?
I don't know the difference between.
You're not aware of the difference? No. So, and I have your interim occupancy permit. I don't know if you have another copy.
I have another copy.
Okay. It indicates, does the board does not have this
No,
document.
we're going to ask you for it after.
Okay, we'll have to circulate this document,
yes.
But perhaps just for brevity, it indicates that the issuance of this is an interim occupancy permit for the reference project carried under building permit number 120149/2018. The permit will expire on July 1, 2020. And the issuance of a permanent building occupancy permit is contingent on the following. First and second floor, all permit work must be completed and you must comply with a certification letter. There must be emergency lighting required in the main floor electrical room. All electrical work still needs to be complete, and an engineer's final electrical certification letter has to be provided. Did you review that?
So the issuance of occupancy permit, or in this case interim occupancy permit, would indicate a substantial part of the work has been done, and based on the give me a second.
It's a contingent document, correct? That you can occupy portions of the building provided certain things would be done, with a specific expiry date being July 1st, 2020. Correct?
And yeah, and when the property owner applies for occupancy permit, that would constitute that a substantial part of the renovation has been done. And in this case, the city views it in a way that issuance of interim occupancy permit would also stipulate that the improvement or the improvement. Accessible property is while the improvement is under subclause I, is under construction, or the improvement under subclause subclause 1 and subclause 2 is under substantial renovation. So such subject property is under subclause 2, substantial renovation, and until the improvement is or is capable of being occupied or used for purposes such as in construction or substantial renovation, or the second anniversary of the date of commencement of the construction. So what we have here is that when property owner applied for the interim occupancy permit, that would stipulate that have part of the buildings or have been substantially renovated for and capable of being occupied, as well as since commencement of construction started in 2017, so 2 years of 2 years stipulation provided by the Municipal Assessment Act has been elapsed. I hope that answers the question.
Have you determined whether these conditions were satisfied as of May 13, 2020, when the supplemental assessment was issued?
Well, the interim permit was issued.
Right. It expires on July 1st, 2020. Did you make any determination whether those conditions had been satisfied as of July 1, 2020?
I am not like when I inspected the properties, some minor work was still to be done. The property was vacant. However, it doesn't negate the fact that the property was substantially renovated. It doesn't negate the fact that the second anniversary of the date of the commencement of the construction or substantial renovation. So the terminology of accessible property based on the Municipal Assessment Act has been met.
Was it in a leasable state at the time of your, first of all, when did you inspect the property?
We inspected the property, I believe it was last week.
Last week?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and last week, had the renovations been completed?
For the most part, yes. So minor alterations, minor work for the, we're talking about level 1 and level 2 of the subject property, as well as the basement. There was still work to be done. However, the work that was still to be done would not negate the fact that that the operation could not start. Say, things were in a form where it could have been used and occupied to, for the most part.
Is it true that a substantial portion of the building was still open to the elements? In other words, it wasn't completely enclosed?
Not to my knowledge.
Those are my questions. I don't know if Mr. Neufeld has any additional questions.
I do, and just on a practical matter, after this permit expired, was a new one taken out?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Now, do you understand the concept of why they issue interim permits? I mean, it's to allow certain trades to work in the building, which they normally wouldn't be allowed to work in. You're not familiar with that? Okay. And at the time, I'm looking at page 11 here, and reading some of the work that was supposed to have been done, such as a bowling alley. Did you see a bowling alley?
Not all of the work was done, and the bowling alley was not done.
Okay. Matter of fact, you heard the representative say that that has been abandoned.
Exactly. So the in that respect, if it has been abandoned, then it's not going to be done, right?
Right. So some of the things that are in permits don't always get finished, correct?
That's exactly the point.
And now, speaking of the reliability of that particular person, page 12 required a structural support. You notice that? New lintels at east stairs, new lintels at the openings, new stair opening, and new shaft opening. You note that on the permit?
So you're talking page 12?
Page 12, under description. You notice the structural required, listed in there.
Well, some work for sure I saw was done.
It's saying that the permit is taken out for structural, correct?
Well, it's taken out to do some work, structural included, yes.
For the stairs, the new stairs. And when we inspected the property, we stood at those stairs, if you recall, and I asked the question if they had done structural work, and Mr. Ambrosio said no. You recall that?
I don't recall that.
Okay, I was just wondering if you'd heard him say that. Now, the pictures you're showing on page 3, 4, and 5, these were not pictures you took?
No, they're not. Those are the pictures Mr. Ambrosio sent to the assessor back in May. I think it was April.
Okay. They're not very clear, but these pictures don't appear to show the building as being finished, do they? I'm looking at material all over the floors and building materials lying around, unfinished portions.
In some portions, but they also show some portions as being finished with the furniture in place.
So some portions finished, some portions not.
Correct.
And is this first and second floor fair to characterize as a rather open area on both floors? They're not demised, are they?
Well, they're open areas. Well, for them, they have major. For the most part, first and second floor are open areas.
Yes, and the first floor, they built a new stairwell between the first and the second. Correct. So that is all open. So you're suggesting that an unfinished portion of one part of the building is okay? You can use the rest of this space?
Actually, both portions of where the staircase is appear to be finished.
The staircase, yes, but other portions of the first and second floor, which you looked at, are not finished, correct?
For the most part,
the front coffee bar wasn't finished. The kitchens aren't finished. The front and rear kitchens, the rear lounge isn't finished. There's core holes in the second floor that go to the third, and there's fire escape work needs to be done, and that's all part of the first and second floor. So you're suggesting that if a lot of it is done, you can use it?
Well, a lot of it. Mr. Nicola, would you would agree with me that a lot of it is done, correct?
Oh, absolutely, a lot of it's done. But isn't this a question to get a permit? A lot of it doesn't satisfy. Like, who's moving in? I got a lot of the work done. Let's move in. Well, we don't have a toilet for you yet. I mean, I'm kidding. They had toilets, but you know what I'm getting at.
Well, I know, and that's where the Municipal Assessment Act definitions of accessible property comes in, right? And you are aware of it that.
Well, I'm going to leave Mr. Murphy to argue that.
Well, the improvement under subclause 1 is under construction or improvement. So what we have is we have second anniversary of the commencement of the construction.
Well, on the second year, the commencement of the evidence you've given us, issue date is September 14th, 2018. So the 2-year anniversary of that would have been yesterday, correct?
However, that's part of the permit. The commencement of the construction began in 2017.
The other section of the permit that you've given us evidence has an issue date of August 22nd, 2019.
And they also spoke of the permits that date back to 2017. And what we have to look at is the commencement of the construction.
Do you understand what the first permit construction was for? You saw you saw Ambrosio discuss abatement. Did you remember hearing that? And your office was sent the engineer's report on the asbestos and the lead in the building. Do you have that?
Actually, I am not aware of any reports.
Well, this was started by Lindsay Wareham, and she has those reports. You didn't get those from her?
No, I don't have any knowledge of any reports regarding to asbestos.
So in order to construct the building, you first must clean it out, correct? So does the Assessment Act deal with cleaning out and construction in the same category, or are they separate?
The commencement, the way it's viewed is the work started in 2017 for the demolition, as well as the work started for the construction also in 2017. Just trying to find the permit for it. I think it's this one.
Now, in regard to the value, the rents that you placed on this property, well, first of all, let's start, no, not the rents, the leasable area. Where did those numbers come from?
The leasable area is a footprint of the building, 7,000 square feet.
They're not a BOMA measurement?
It's an owner-occupied
I'm
building.
sorry, but
it is a fully owner-occupied building.
do these measurements satisfy the BOMA requirements for measurement?
City of Winnipeg is applying BOMA requirements, and when the property is single owner occupied, footprint of the building is being used.
Is the third floor being owner occupied?
Third floor is vacant, and we have it registered as used for storage.
Well, you're assuming it's going to be owner occupied as well then?
At this point, we treat it as an owner occupied.
When you compare your rents to other properties that you're getting rents from, are they following the same standard of measurement, or are you using two different standards? Are you using BOMA rents to apply to a building that's not been measured BOMA?
We're using rents that have been reported to us. I cannot speak to whether they are BOMA rent or not.
And one of the major factors in the BOMA measurement is the elimination of vertical penetrations from the rentable area. You aware of that?
Well, that was introduced in 20, I believe it's 20.
No, it's been in for a long time. Vertical measurements don't count on floor area, correct?
BOMA measurement states that I believe that in 1996 BOMA measurements of owner occupied buildings, you would include all of the areas.
I'm sorry, you're saying that BOMA has a separate category for owner occupied buildings?
In 1990, I believe it was in 1996 BOMA.
No, I think you're mistaken. I think the assessor may, but BOMA does not. I put that to you. Now, so what was the square footage measurement before the building began renovation? Do you have that number?
I don't have that number.
And the basement, as a matter of fact, you're calling the entire square area leasable in the basement. Now, you were in the basement. You did note that major portions of it were service areas. I remember you took a picture of the sprinkler head road. So you're saying that's rentable area?
Again, applying the standards that City of Winnipeg applies to the owner-occupied properties, we're using the entire area.
The going to the rents, you're using page 9 are your rents for comparison?
Yes, they are.
Okay, now you're familiar with classes of buildings, are you not?
Yes.
Okay, so what is the building's class?
A, B, D, E.
Under whose standards? BOMA, Johnson, or the city?
Well, right,
I mean, you don't know because it's not finished, right?
Right now, City of Winnipeg applies. I believe. Let's see, we have it here. I used OFB class because that's what I saw in. That's how it was applied for. Yes.
Okay, so you applied B class to this building, which is a 3-story 1959 construction. Okay.
It's a 3-story with effective age of 2000 that had major renovations of over or around $5 million.
All right. Now, comp 3 and 4 on your first page are from 200 Portage. That's is that the former Bank of Nova Scotia building?
I think so.
Yeah. And you have 2 sets of rents. One is a 2-year and the other is a 10-year. Are you aware that your own assessment department, under sworn testimony, has said that those rents aren't valid?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Well, I had the misfortune of having to listen to Mr. Ruda tell us that those rents weren't valid. So you're not aware that he has said that?
I'm not aware.
Okay. And the next section, the ones in 240 Kennedy, which one of those is for the lawyer's office?
All right. Give me a second.
believe the tenant was pulling, pulling hammerlock Frolinger.
No, I'm looking for my
Okay,
copy
well,
with the actual tenants.
If you don't have it, that's fine, but I'll put to you that they were the owner of the building and they rented from themselves in 240 Kennedy. You're aware of that?
I wasn't aware of that.
The capitalization rate that you've selected, what is this being called to determine the row that it's on? OFB row?
At suburban, actually, yeah, it's downtown Beam.
Downtown B, okay. And I note you only have two classifications, A and B. Does the board have, or the taxpayer have any indication of what standards you use to separate the classes?
I'm not aware of, I can't answer the question.
Now you compared it to a B. The properties you're comparing it to, for example, 330 St. Mary's is a investment property who's been measured with BOMA with a gross up. You understand what a floor gross up is and BOMA standards, how that works?
I guess I'm familiar with the BOMA standards. Like I wouldn't have all the BOMA answers to you.
They
Right?
take
right
the
away.
physical space, they gross it up by the percentage of common area that's going to be included in it, but they don't include vertical penetrations, which are the elevators and the stairwells, and sometimes portions of the main floor, which are gross common area. You're aware that
Those are the BOMA.
right, okay. In a nutshell, that's not the way the subject is measured. You didn't adjust it for that basis?
Again, because subject property is owner-occupied property.
Well, but you can't put a rent from one type of measurement system on another, can you? I'm descending into argument. I'll leave it at that. Do you have any rents for basement space to show the board?
I don't have any evidence for the basement.
And in the basement, are there any demised or rental units in the basement of the subject?
Basement, for the subject property, basement is a usable area, and the property owner chose to use it as a recreational area for the employees.
So accessory space, but there are no demised units. There's no commercial rental space in the basement, is there?
I know there is no commercial rental space in the
You
basement.
described the third floor as being storage. Did you put any storage rents in your workup?
Oh, there is no storage rates in the workup.
Earlier, you talked about this interim permit, which you applied for the first and second floor, but this does not cover the basement or the third floor, does it?
It doesn't.
So your opinion was that a first and second floor interim occupancy permit with a short lifespan was okay, first and second, but you got nothing to show that the third or the basement have been completed then, correct? In terms of an interim permit?
Based on the permit, it's on the first and second floor. I
Okay.
believe. Okay, but I haven't. You're the only one who has a copy right now, so.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, make sure we get a copy of that at home. Do you have anything else that should be asked? So just one last question. On page 8 is premised, the value is premised on the building being available to the market for its use. Is that correct?
The value here is a value available to the market, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. And I wasn't yelling at you. I know it's not a good room, so I'm talking very loud. Yes.
Take it from this discussion and the fact that you're so far apart on so many matters that you didn't discuss this before coming. Am I correct?
No, that's not true. Well, I think it's fair to say that both of us left the building slightly confused as to how we were going to handle this, and without the time to try to work something out.
It's not to say I would far rather than the two of you work through your confusion before confusing 8 people in this room. Either there's something wrong with your process or his process or our process or all three, because this isn't as productive as it could be. Put it that way. It would be nice if we all took that away.
Well, and you haven't heard what I have had to say about this process either, but
we can talk.
yes.
Another point would be, I heard somebody make reference to this being a supplementary assessment, but it is not, correct? This is not an application brought to us as a result of the issuance of a supplementary tax notice, correct?
This particular one is a result of this value. This building was heard before for 2020 value before the supplementary assessment notice.
This is not a supplementary tax notice that I'm seeing in your evidence.
For
Where on which page?
page 13 of my evidence, notice of change in assessment.
That is not a supplementary tax notice.
Oh, supplementary assessment notice.
Neither. This is an entity unique to the city of Winnipeg in Manitoba. The other 135 municipalities do not use a thing called an assessor advice. Frankly, I have no idea what an assessor advice is, but I do know that as it says in here, the assessor has made a change to the role already as a result of section 14.2, taking the opportunity to view this as an error or omission. So what was the error on the roll that prompted this notice?
A substantial renovation, change in.
That's an error, the fact that the roll was an error because you discovered a renovation?
So, are we, Mr. Boreski, are we looking at page 14 or?
No. My question is, why is this being used when the City of Winnipeg Act and Municipal Act have provisions for supplementary tax process, assessment noticing, applications for revision through that, and there's all of section 13, which the assessor can use to make changes. Why is this coming to us as an application to revise? I see what the process is and the fact that if you issue this, there is the opportunity for an appeal. My question is, why is it even being done this way?
Okay, so the original value of $2,003,000 was a value that did not include physical changes done to the property. There were a number of permits that property owner has taken out to do the work, and when they requested and the interim occupancy permit was issued, an assessor spoke to the property owner and it was confirmed that a lot of work has been done, and the assessor at that time
Sorry,
issued
you
may I
didn't
finish?
speak to the owner. Spoke to a
Oh,
person who was on the site who wasn't authorized. I just want to clarify that.
okay, I'll get the name of the person.
Ambrosio.
Ambrosio.
Okay, but you've been making the assumption that you could make this change on the roll because it's been 2 years, like you said earlier on, am I correct?
Yes.
It's been 2 years since the work started, therefore you can go and put onto the roll whatever has been done up to this point. Am I understanding that correctly? Is that what you were
Oh,
saying?
yes. The changes. To
Which
the-
section of the act enables you to do that?
A second.
May I assist? I have copies of the note. Do you have the notices that were issued, Mr. Preston?
I'm looking at page 14 of his submission, which is an assessor advice.
Yes. So just to clarify, it appears that there was a supplementary tax notice issued under section 341 for 2020 and an assessor advice that mentioned for 2021 under section 14.
And we're hearing an application with respect to which of those two?
I believe they're both are an issue.
They're both.
Yeah,
Yes, they're both. It's
20 because it's a carry forward appeal effectively on value for 2020.
we did check with the manager of appeals prior to this on whether there was a need for filing both, and we do have it in writing that 20 would be enough based on the Paulo case.
Okay. But so am I seeing a copy of the supplementary tax notice anywhere here?
Supplementary assessment notice.
In your evidence?
Oh, okay. Copy of the tax notice was not included in my presentation.
So we're dealing with two things. We're dealing with an application that stems from two notices provided by the city. Is that what we're doing?
Yes, we're dealing with value changes to value of the subject property effective May 13, 2020. Based on the section of 341 of the Municipal Assessment Act.
Okay. What's the date of the supplementary tax notice?
Okay, the supplementary tax notice was issued in June 23, 2020.
June 23rd, 2020.
Yes.
And the assessor's advice was?
And also June 23rd. We're talking about notice of change in assessment.
So then what you're doing is you're putting some value onto the roll for 2020. That portion of the change in the assessment of the value that has been achieved by what date?
May 13th, 2020.
By May 13th. Okay, so whatever was done by May 13th, that's what you're putting onto the 2020 roll. That's the assessment.
The new value of, yes, new value is effective.
But the building is not finished yet, correct? So what you're saying?
Some work still has to be done, but predominantly it has been finished. And again,
Can you give a percentage? You've told us what the values of the permits are.
okay, the percentage I would have to say probably 95%.
95% completed. Okay. Thank you.
And the building is unoccupied.
Was vacant. Upon inspection, it was vacant. Yeah.
Mr. Seelan.
And again, when I say 95%, I'm referring to, I'm excluding the third floor.
You're excluding the third floor, but you're saying it's 95% completed.
For the first because the property is this property chose to demolish the finish of the third floor, but there was never any permits taken out to do work there. So we are treating it as storage space.
So it's demolished,
Yeah, like interior
unoccupied
finish.
third floor.
Yes.
95% of the renovation completed on the first
For-
two floors.
On the basement and the first and second floor.
Basement, first floor, second floor, third floor is vacant.
First floor is bare. There is no finish whatsoever.
Third floor.
Yes.
Okay, so there was supposed to be a bowling alley in the basement, which did not happen, correct?
It did not happen, and the plan was scrapped, so it's not going to
So,
happen.
so what is in the basement? Just plain empty space?
A basement
Flooring?
has a gym area, finished area with equipment.
And it's completely finished. The basement is
For the
completely
most,
finished.
for areas that needed to be finished in the basement are for the most part are finished.
For the most part.
Again, as I say, 95% finished.
We'll get further description from Mr. Neufeld. But I also just want to ask you, Arca, I think Mr. Neufeld or perhaps, anyway, indicated that there was open area on one of the floors. Was that the third floor?
Staircase, is it staircase?
Oh,
Something was-
there's a new staircase leading from the first floor to the second floor. That was
Staircase
like
was from first to second,
And it's open.
it's open
and therefore not part of the square
well,
footage.
the area is open, and if you can see the pictures on my report here, they will describe with like page 4 of my report. Yes. So we see a new staircase. It's a picture number 4 from the top. If you go from the top down, picture number 4 will show you the staircase. And first 3 pictures on top, what is considered to be an open area. So there are some offices, some private area for customer service representatives to speak to, but overall the plan is to have those tables utilized as a call center, and so it's an open concept in the center of the building.
Okay. My last question, page 6 on your brief, the pictures you show, is that the third floor?
That's the third floor.
Okay. Page 4 then is, the bottom pictures are, is that the basement?
No, that's front of the main floor where they're trying to do the bar kind of setup. So when you see picture number 2, that's actually a counter that's covered with cardboard material, I believe. But that is supposed to be the bar counter, and with the tables on the other side, if I remember correct. That's actually picture number 6, so right on there.
And I'm sorry, what was the date again of your inspection?
My inspection was a lot of ago.
Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
How much space in the basement is usable? How much is mechanical, electrical, we'll say, building systems space?
To date, I would probably contribute to my, like, without looking at the plan, I would say 30% mechanical somewhere there in the basement.
Thank you.
We're just going to take a 5-minute break here. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to call this hearing back to order. Mr. Neufeld, I believe it is now your turn to give your presentation. Thank you.
You know, I had originally submitted a brief, and we had arranged an inspection after that date. And at the time when we first submitted, we were not sure of the degree of completion either. So I'm going to rely for value on the revised one, and I understand the rules of evidence, but I think one of the major issues, it refers to a physical difference. And so it's marked revised after inspection, and I've given the assessor a copy, and the board a copy has also been sent. Firstly, though, I did.
Do we have
Yeah.
copies of that?
Is it
Email?
The revised one, I think it does say revised brief.
applicant revised brief?
Okay,
Hang on. Oh, there, okay.
It says at the top, revised after inspection.
there were also two sets of pictures that were sent in. Again, these were inspection pictures. That's when we were there.
Brown has sent in 6 photos.
Right, this one. And everybody sent in two sets. One in the email marked pictures taken in June.
Number 5, where it says applicant rebuttal. Those are photos as well.
We're seeing this for the first time.
Yes.
Oh my.
Yes, so the first, I'm not sure what they're called, but you should have one mark. These pictures were
Excuse
taken.
me, Mr. Neufeld, we're just going to take a break. I'd like to call this meeting back to order. And Mr. Neufeld, we are going to hear your original brief that was submitted for the September 1st date.
Very well,
You
but
wanna- if you want to talk verbally about
right.
your inspection,
I
feel free.
will deal with the physical differences that came out of the inspection on the first brief then. So the subject property was built in 1959 and purchased by my client. They own the building next to it, and it was purchased for their business use. They have connected the two buildings. That's 240 Kennedy and 414 Graham. They're a call center business. Now they start with the rebuttal information. The one that's labeled pictures 1 to 6. These are pictures taken on June 26th, right after we received the notice from the assessment department. What they show is the 3rd floor. There are no windows. That's a cough from dust, cement dust. I'm probably getting asbestosis. It is not COVID. So they show the outside pictures. There are no windows. The flashing isn't done. Lots of work to be done on the outside of the building. So I did manage to go into the building at that time. So to suggest that that is storage space, I don't know, maybe picnic space, but there's no heat, no HVAC, and there's still no HVAC in the site. There's no mechanical in the site. The windows were put up prior to our second inspection of September 9th. So it has been closed off to the elements. But at the time the supplemental was issued, there was no windows. So how could he even put a rent on it of anything? It is just not space. The second set of pictures are pictures from our inspection of September 9th. And I don't know what those are called, but we sent them in again, call it rebuttal. So I don't know if we're on the same document right now.
What am I looking at then?
You're looking at picture, I think. The first picture well, this is the first big page.
It's applicant rebuttal.
Rebuttal, it's under rebuttal.
Applicant rebuttal. Does applicant rebuttal for 14 grid?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that okay to go?
Yep.
Okay, so the first picture is the in-house coffee shop. This is open to the public. This is for the employees. And you can see the tables have been moved in. That is unfinished. Wires dangling, flooring not done, fixtures lying about. The picture below it is the second floor where the new staircase was built. So that stairwell is takes up a large portion of the space and has yet to be adjusted for in the rentable square footage. So this is an open area, a common area, and you could judge that it's finished, but there's not much to finish, unlike the coffee shop, which doesn't even have its roof in. The second page is back to our third floor. And that's what it looks like in September versus the other pictures which were in June. You can see by looking at the picture that, well, I know that the fire suppressor, the sprinklers have been installed because they were working on them in June, and that's it. Mechanical isn't in, but the windows are in. This is what is deemed storage. You can't put anything in there. You won't get a permit for storage or anything in this site. The picture at the bottom of that page is a basement storage room. This is part of what the assessment department is deeming rentable space in the building. It's just a bare room. The next page, the picture at the top is a bit fuzzy. What this is shows the vertical penetrations that have been cored into the roof, which haven't been filled in. This picture was taken on the second floor, going up to the third floor. So because they're still working on the third, they're coring downwards to extend the mechanical equipment up to the third floor because it's all being redone. So another reason why all the way through to the basement isn't yet complete, because they're still coring through the basement to finish off the third floor. The picture at the bottom is of the first floor, and you can see there's a ladder of some sort in the doorway. They're still working on the site, and it's a little more complete, that particular area. The next page shows where the wood slats are. This is an unfinished room. This is the the executive lounge. Absolutely no finish in here. It's supposed to have a kitchen facilities to come, and it's still on slab floor. The basement isn't done. They've just have the wood slats up. Below that is one of the kitchen areas I don't remember which floor I'm looking at because there's two of these. And you can see that the cabinetry has been installed. The plumbing is not hooked up. The floor is still slab, and there's no finish done on this. And the following page shows another kitchen area on another floor. And I can't remember which floor is which. One of these is first, one of these is second. The picture below, although it doesn't really show very well, is an emergency light. It is not complete. So this refers to, of course, the permit requiring the emergency lighting to be finished. You can't put anybody in a building without the emergency services being completed. They are not completed. Next page shows the famous bowling alley, and I'm going to hold it up so you can see which one I'm referring to. It's a lowered portion of the basement, and it's just cement slab. So the bowling alley has been abandoned, and it will likely be finished in the future to some area. They're not sure what they're going to be using it for, but it won't be a bowling alley. As of the time of the inspection, September, this is what's being assessed at, I don't know what it was, $11 a foot. The next picture shows one of the basement shower rooms. So in the basement, there are 4 shower rooms. There's the storage room I just showed you, an exercise room, mechanical rooms, and the concrete bowling alley. The first page is the entranceway, and it's still all closed off. And I don't know why that picture's in there. Someone stole a standpipe cover already. I told them it was going to happen. Just came in and clipped it off. It was $3 worth of metal for somebody. It's not finished. No occupancy permit. Interim occupancy permits are issued to allow certain sub-trades to work in the area to do their part of the work. They're not used to allow people to begin occupancy. It's to allow that. In this case, the goal was to allow some of the interior people and the networking people to come in and do their work. Completion date at this time is probably 2021 at some time. And remember, first, second, and basement are one economic unit. So if you think you got 95% of one floor done, which isn't true, call it 80% of one floor done, you don't get to use it. And I don't mean this in any manner that anyone should feel upset with me upon, because I have 5 kids, and I'm thinking, someone said to me, you're 80% delivering that baby. It's not done until it's finished. And that's the same story with the building. Until you're finished, it's not done. It's not rentable. And I hope that wasn't insensitive. My kids will slap me later if it is. So what we had to deal with on this unfinished building was a method of valuation. And there's 2 ways I had thought of doing it. And it was only after the last inspection that I decided what I was going to do. And the 2 ways are to try to value it as a shell building and to find out the sales of other shell buildings. The only one I could find was 138 Portage, which was about 50,000 square feet that sold for $2 million, $40 a foot. Now, it's in better shape than Portage because that's got some other issues to deal with, but the scope of work is very similar. That's one way to do it. And the second way to do it is look at the value before it was done and do an income approach, which is what we ended up doing on my revised version. The first version handed into you is a prospective version. It does not represent the building as of the inspection date or as of the date that the supplementals were issued. What it shows, for example, is we put is the basement. Now these measurements, incidentally, are the owner's new measurements that I got from them. Now the problem with these new measurements is they haven't taken off the vertical penetration on between the first and second floor. This is the brand new stairwell that was put in there. And on that point, the person, and I don't want to say anything negative about people, but the person that the assessment department talked to, Ambrosio, is really not knowledgeable or authorized to speak on matters as this. And in an example in the evidence, I asked him, did they replace any structural steel to put the stairwell in? He says, no, I didn't have to. There's a permit for it, you know that. But that's an aside. And of course, on the permits, the other aside on the permits are, the permits weren't for cumulative work. They were for changes in the scope of work. When they bought the building, they had an engineer's report done. I emailed it to Lindsay Wareham, the original one, and it showed a certain amount of remediation work required. After getting the building, they commissioned a second report, which I also sent to her, where the level of issues to be addressed was much higher. So the first permits were for cleaning the building out. Then the permits were for a concept plan of what we would like to achieve. Then they were all modified. There was no bowling alley as an example. So leaning on the permits is forgetting that these were a work in progress. And regardless of whether the assessment department would like to say, well, it's 2 years and we have to assess it or not, it's still not worth any more than this because you have an incomplete building. The other way you can deal with this is take the cost of the building once complete and subtract the cost to bring it to that stage. And that is also open, but that of course requires us to look into the future. And the Act doesn't allow us to look into the future. The Act says we must dwell in the past. So in my revised number, I did modify the rents that would be achievable for what it had been achieving in the past, but we're using the square footage from today, and that's what you're looking at. What we were not aware of is the basement, the level of finish until our last inspection, as to how much would actually be deemed usable, and it's only about 3,000 square feet, which is what we changed on our revised version. So it's not 5,977, it's 3,000 square feet, which would represent the exercise room, the little storage room, and the shower area. And there's no rent. The rent, where we got these rents, incidentally, was on our page 3. This is the projected rent roll. So the numbers are there for the square footage that I told you about. And the basement area, of course, has been not correctly measured, and this has formed the basis for our valuation. Now, you'll also notice that the third floor does have a prospective tenant in place as well. So the building would be deemed a multi-tenanted building to be measured by BOMA standards. So these numbers, I've just reviewed the numbers, are not quite BOMA because they have to remove the stairwell. So they will go downwards. So what I've given you is the value which we've done. You've got to take the basement and cut that back to 3,000 feet. And I know you're not going to look at the revised valuation number, but it's a $5 basement, not a $12 basement or 14 as the rent suggests. That is an owner renting part of the space to himself. He can put whatever number he'd like on that space. It's not market. So, but essentially, we have to go back until the building is finished. We have to go back to the way it was before, or call it a shell space, or look into the future, which we can't do. The actual square footage on the revised one, I can tell you what that is because this is a physical issue. I can correct physical problems. It's actually 20,757 square feet when the third floor is finished. Without that third floor, it is less 5,489 square feet, which puts us down at 15,300 square feet approximately of unfinished rentable space. I don't have a better method to tell you on how to value it in progress, other than our standards would suggest we go back to a shell building until such time as the building is finished. Alternatively, we can look at the value before the project started, because the project has not been delivered. That was its value going in. And its value going out will only be seen when it's done. And I again, verbally, I'm going to tell you that the number we're putting on it is $1,249,000. And the change from the revised to the unrevised is dealing with the basement and the unfinished aspects of it. And incidentally, as far as classification goes, it doesn't matter how much money you spend on this building. It's class D or miscellaneous. Not B, not C, it's D or miscellaneous. And that has to do with a number of factors in the way building standards are done. The changes that have been made are generally for the owner's business and their own personal choices, which he's got 3 wonderful lounges in there for his employees. It's wonderful that they have all that. Great exercise room. What does that matter on the market? That doesn't make it worth more when it's finished. So I know Mr. Mercury has something to say.
I'm just going to deal with the legislation because I think this, just as a follow-up to some of Mr. Bresky's further questions, and part of the difficulties we're experiencing here is this supplemental assessment, or the 2 supplemental assessments, in my view, were issued clearly prematurely pursuant to the Act. So under the Municipal Assessment Act, yes, assessable property, you can assess property that's under construction or under renovation after 2 years of renovation work. But the fundamental object under the Municipal Assessment Act is to assess at market value of the physical asset as it exists in the taxation year. Taxation year that we're dealing with here is 2020 for the supplemental assessment. So they have indicated they've increased the assessment they've increased it to $4,335,000. And so in order to confirm that assessment, you have to assume that the physical asset as it exists as of the date of the supplemental assessment, which is May the 13th, 2020, through to December 31, 2020, is capable of achieving rents. It's an income producing property, and that a prudent investor with that physical asset, not what it might be in the future, what it is today, is worth $4.3 million. So clearly it is not. The fact that there's an interim occupancy permit issued as of May 13, 2020 doesn't give it a value of $4.3 million. You have to look at what the physical asset is. And if you actually look at the interim occupancy permit that you've now seen, you'll note that number one, it's contingent. It has an expiry date of July 1, 2020. Coincidentally, the supplemental notices issued on June 23rd, 2020, 7 days prior to that, or 8 days prior to that. But the following uses were permitted. It wasn't for office use, it was for interior and exterior alterations. That was the purpose of it. The correct way for the city to approach this is wait till the building is complete. If that's going to be in early 2021, they'll have the ability under Section 341 of the City of Winnipeg Charter to issue a supplemental tax notice, a supplemental assessment notice, as of the date that it's effectively has new value and is capable of achieving whatever rents the assessor believes it can achieve. But right now, as we sit here today in September of 2020, and as we were sitting back in May 13 of 2020 when this was issued, this is a shell, as Mr. Neufeld has described. So the city has elected to issue 2 new assessment notices, one for 2020 and one for 2021, which is even more premature, which they call an assessor advice. It's an interesting term, but that's what they call it internally, and that's what you see on the notice. But it's issued under Section 14.2 of the Municipal Assessment Act. And my understanding of their policy is that they feel this is either an error or an omission, so they've omitted certain improvements for 2021. Well, we all know that those improvements aren't there yet. This entire value, the 4.3 million, again, is premised on the faulty assumption that this is a finished building. It's not. And until we have a leasable building that's capable of generating income, it's premature to be issuing these supplemental assessments in my view. But they made the choice to do that. And your task as the board is to look at the physical asset in the taxation year and value it as it exists today, not what it might be or what it used to be, what it is today. If it is improved and that they finish the work, as we expect that they will, I fully expect the city to issue another supplemental at a further point in time, as they're entitled to do. But as we sit here today, this is what we have. It's a shell building. So that, I think it's important to understand why we're here, and part of the challenges that we're facing is that we're dealing with a fiction. The Act, in many ways, deals with a fiction because we look at retrospective market value, but you can't, the fiction does not exist when we're talking about the physical asset. You look at the physical asset and you value that physical asset as of the reference date. So I think the purpose of Mr. Neufeld's rebuttal evidence was to show what that physical asset actually is. So those are my comments.
Yes, and I knew I had some more here. Well, another thing that and I'm only bringing this up in response to what the assessor said, talking about single tenant buildings. Now, this building has been vacant since 2017. So as of today, that's 3.5 years of vacancy in the building. Why wouldn't they, under their own standards, their own practices, apply a chronic vacancy rate to this as well? It's not occupied. When it was earning money prior to the renovation, the NOI was 121,000 as full. You can see that our workup, my revised workup, is pretty much dead on with that in terms of after applying a vacancy rate to it. And that's I wouldn't call it a great way of doing it, but it makes sense. The actual workup for something like this would probably take several days to prepare on the analysis of the valuation and how it's to be done. And we were prepared for a short hearing, not a 3-day hearing. That's what we had for you.
Thank you. Questions?
Hey, Mr. Neufeld, are you aware that are you aware that the property was sold in 2016 for $2.7 million?
That was an assemblage sale. They were purchasing it because they owned 240 Kennedy next door. They had a call center in there. They needed to expand the call center. They bought the building next door. There's a doorway installed to join them now on 2 levels. So an assemblage value sale, there's no way to adjust it. You simply disregard it. They bought it for their business.
That's a sale price. That's how much they paid, correct?
I believe so, yes.
You're aware of the value of the permits?
No, as I mentioned earlier, the permits were not cumulative. They were replacing along the way. They ran into problems. They changed plans. So we don't have the full permit number yet.
But declared the construction value on the existing permits. Have you seen those?
I've seen the numbers that are written on here, and as I said, the work hasn't, the scope of the project has changed, and a great part of the permits, I don't know if you're familiar with call centers systems, but I've actually been a project manager for Ipsos Re when they were building their call centers, Winnipeg, Ottawa, Edmonton, and consulted on San Francisco and New York. 75 to 80% of their construction costs go to requirements for the business, networking. For example, and I did point this out to you in the building, is they had to upgrade their panel. not because they're drawing more power, but they have more receptacles. And the power output is determined by the number of things plugged in, not by how much they draw. So they've gone and upgraded with a brand new electrical system. That would not have normally been required if they weren't a call center. And that would probably form, well, you saw the new transformers down there. There were TVSSs all around the place, with transvolt surge suppressors and other things. So, and then the data transmission. So a large part of the building has wireless, but they still run cabling in. So the costs are huge. As I said, 60 to 70% of a project easily in a call center has to do with their own system requirements, not taxable.
But regardless, that's
And then, sorry, I had to interrupt. You take an old building, and the other part to consider are code upgrades. Code upgrades don't add value to a building. You don't get more rent just because you've done your code upgrades, because the market says, we don't care about code upgrades. It's a requirement. It's an assumption that you're going to have appropriate codes. The building next door rents for $12, $14, $16. You're not getting 18 or 20 because you've done your code upgrades. You're getting the same as the market. So code upgrades, 1959 buildings. You saw the code upgrades. All the mechanical had to be redone. And those are the numbers. The cost of putting in a stairwell, dumb in terms of investment for it. It was somebody's idea. They liked the idea, but they just took away your rentable square footage with a cost, which is, that's called an incurable super adequacy. So we're looking at costs on a building like this is irrelevant. You're still going to, in the long run, the final answer, go down, ask what the market is going to rent for this building, regardless of all the other stuff you want to bring up.
Page 3 of your report, that's as of December 31st, 2019. Is that the subject property income and expense mailer, post reference, or what is it?
This was a projected rent roll that they were doing. You can see that they had start dates penciled in of October 1st, 2019, and that's when they had hoped to get rolling in the building. And then here we are rolling to October 2020, and they still haven't got in. And as I mentioned, that was primarily due to the extra time required for the abatement.
Okay, so this is not actual. Okay.
No, it was projected. I think we just put it in there, and it's all post-reference values to show two things: that there has been a remeasurement, number one, and secondly, that it is planned to be a multi-tenanted building.
For page 1 of your report, so the rents you used originally pretty much in line with what city is using.
I think when the building is done, we're not going to disagree on the rental value. So we don't have to spend a lot of time on it for the first and second floor. When it's done, we're going to be close. But the problem is it's not done. So the rent is zero.
I guess, were you an agent representing this case in the 2020 value of the original?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And that value was confirmed, correct?
At the time that appeal was heard, the building was in renovation, and we were looking for a value that was consistent with the 2018 assessment on the same principle, being nothing's changed until the job is done. And in 2018, the board saw it that way and said 977,000. In 2020, they didn't. So that's what happens at the Board of Revision. I have my penciled in number. I'm looking at it right here, 977,000. We'd actually made our presentation to the board a little bit lower than that, but at the board, I had said that the presentation was 807,000, but at the board, we said we should just carry on the old value, which represented the building when it was still earning money at the older rates until such time it could prove to generate the new rates.
And then 2020 value was 2 million, right? That was confirmed.
Yes, that's correct, and it's under appeal.
So, well, you would agree with me that first and second floor, for the most part, are complete.
Well,
There's a lot of
I disagree with 95%.
Okay.
It's lower than that.
It was an estimate, and yeah.
But what we're dealing here is a threshold issue. You don't get to put people in there and earn money until you're 100% done. Now, there are sometimes deficiencies in buildings, you know, like the molding needs to be glued on here, or there's one fixture that's not working, you know, that sort of thing. But what we saw is not adequate at this point yet. The plumbing's not working in the kitchen, as an example. You can't put people in for that.
Because yeah, from what I saw, like bathrooms were
Bathrooms are working, yes.
Bathrooms were there; they were working. The call center area was working. Was capable of being like all you needed is, in my opinion, was to place a computer and a phone. It would have been a
Well,
great.
I haven't seen the engineer's reports and on the HVAC or the electrical to determine whether or not the systems were done. And you remember when we were inspecting the basement, we did manage to look at the standpipes for the sprinkler system, and they were working because they had their stamp on them that they were functional as of July. The electrical system, when I looked at it, there was no tag on there at all, and the HVAC systems weren't available for inspection. So I would have to look at those first. Because I mean, it's if the equipment's in but it's not functioning, it's still not usable space, right? 4 engineers have to sign off on this work. There's the electrical, mechanical, structural, and the other guy. Forgot the name of it. Building itself, building finishes. They all have to sign off on this, and we know the electrical hasn't signed off. So you can't have any permit without him signing off. You can get an interim to come in and bring trades, but you can't occupy and do business in there.
All right. So
apparently, Mr. Pohl agrees with us, but Mr. Ruda does not.
I don't know who
on that subject.
I don't have any knowledge of who agrees with what or disagrees with what, but I guess
who's at the board.
Did you have more questions?
I think I'm done with the question. Thank you.
Mr. Bransky?
We benefit from the best possible information in making our decisions. And we're normally quite lenient in what we accept as information. From time to time, agent or owner will bring information to the hearing that was not submitted previously. And if it's relatively minor, we may turn to the assessor and say, do you mind having a look at this? Do you have any objections to it being used? Though it's not obviously the assessor's decision, we decide in the end whether it will be used or not. This is an extreme case of the two sides being very far apart, and a fairly extreme case of revised information being brought to the board at the hearing. That kind of situation results in our perhaps properly following process and rejecting the new information and using the old information. Does that establish the best value? That then becomes arguable. If we make a decision that you think does not, then you go to the municipal board. We've occupied a lot of time of 8 people here, and you'd wind up going to the municipal board and occupying a lot of time and taxpayers' money there as well. And it strikes me that this could have been resolved by discussions prior to this hearing. And I would certainly ask you, Mr. Mitchell, to not make a practice of submitting information X and then bringing Y, which so often happens. It causes us a dilemma. And that's a dilemma for process and for our deliberation as well. Beyond that, I don't have a lot of questions.
Well, I will respond to that, and I really respect the frankness, and I understand that the board's position. And no, and that's the end of I have no more further commentary on what the board said. One of the things, though, it's failing to recognize is that when we bring properties in here, sometimes they're very clear, the issues are fine. What we have here is probably a property we don't see an awful lot of. And in the valuation world, we don't see a lot of this. This is a property where I've been involved in something similar to this that ended up taking 2 weeks in a trial to go through and sort through everything. And that's the level that we would normally be at. So on one hand, we're dealing with the requirement to have a very large, complicated mess and go through it all, or to try to bring us to the short strokes. And that's what we've done. And a further complication has just been getting out to see these sites. We're dealing with everybody's schedules. So the world decided on March 15th that we're shutting down for a couple of months. And then the world decided after that, we're finishing everything off. And honestly, it's not fitting with our schedules. And that's unfortunate. We try our best. I know we could have done a better job, and the reasons for it, I'm not gonna, you know what they are. And it's certainly not a lack of willingness. I'm here all afternoon, so do I just work till 12 at night to have the perfect one? I'm not, no, life is more important. So yes, we presented you the short strokes here, as they call it. Nothing's changed. Neither of us got into the building, and we're dealing with a physical issue here. We couldn't get into the building until we got into the building. I forced my way in June, and I couldn't get the assessor down until September. And then they had a change in assessors. Lindsay wanted to go in the building, and I was going to arrange that. I could get her in, and she went on leave. So your comments are understood, and
Well,
you won't hear from me on this subject again.
well, no, frankly, maybe we should, because if, even given the current reality, if we need to make some kind of a process change that enables this board to have best information, make use of your expertise, make sure that it is tested by the assessor. Because we're not just going to accept your expertise without it being tested by somebody who's also knowledgeable. He has to have that opportunity. That's what gets us the best.
Well, we did have a very short discussion on this, and we knew we were going to be some distance apart. And I think we indicated that we're looking at a value that was substantially different. Honestly, within theory of appraisal, this is something I struggled with. I do a lot of work on unique projects, and every one of them is like handcrafted, so to speak. There's no model I can take from this. You want to appraise an apartment, I can do it in 35 minutes because there's no thinking there. I mean, there's very set ways. For a half-constructed building, the last one I did, well, as I said, there were lasted weeks in trial. So I think we brought the main points home, and all I can say is please wrestle with this as best you can with what we've given you.
No further questions. If I have a question,
Yeah, I think you said the completion date is 2021.
That's what the new date has been. I was given a number of, they figure 4 to 5 months as of now to finish the work.
Thank you.
What was the holdup?
There are a couple, as I mentioned, the abatement. The report generally, the second report indicated a higher level of asbestos than first thought The paint was all laden with asbestos and some of the piping was. And upon inspection of the third floor, there's a picture in there of asbestos in the paint, which hadn't all been removed. That's third floor, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but that was long. And then they spent a lot of money on it, so they cut back in other areas, redrew plans, and then when COVID struck, they lost several trades that couldn't work.
One last question. Is the hydro on in this building?
Yes, it is. There's lights. The panel is on.
Is there heat?
I don't know, because I know the third floor was open. There's no heat on the third floor. I did not have a chance to inspect. I would make the assumption the heat is on. On B1 and 2.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion on this property, this hearing is closed.